Hello, we are Pittsburgh's Team 12, and my name is Chidi Mbaraguru. Today, our team will be discussing our Global Systems project on technology for global reach. Our case study is the flood that took place in Nigeria in the fall of last year. This flood affected an estimated 7.7 million people, of which 363 people were later found to be dead, and an estimated 387,000 people were displaced from their homes. Our project aims to identify the emergency management procedures that were in place during the time of the flood, as well as to come up with some recommendations to the problems that we saw in this case. Now, some background information about Nigeria. It is located in West Central Africa. It is the most populated country on the African continent, with a population of over 170 million people. In the country alone, there are 500 languages that are spoken, as well as about 250 individual ethnic groups. Nigeria also has the distinction of having the second largest economy on the continent after South Africa. Some of the major cities include Abuja, its capital, along with Kano and Lagos. Some population facts about the demographics. About 70% of the population is below the poverty line. 25% of this population are internet users, and about 55% of the population owns at least one mobile phone. In Nigeria, the National Emergency Management Agency, or NEMA, handles all of the emergency management in the country to deal with any natural disasters that may occur. So that's like your floods, your droughts, things of that nature. Before the flood happened, there were many warnings and signs that were predicted as early as March of 2012. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency had advised individual state governments in the proposed affected regions to take precautionary measures against the possibility of flooding. Out of all the states that were advised, only Lagos State heeded the warnings of NEMA. After some months, the federal government began to take steps to prepare its people for the possibility of disaster. They employed television, radio programs, and newspapers to warn its people. But like I said earlier, most people they don't own television. Their main form of communication is through mobile phone. The main form of accessing information is through mobile phone and word of mouth. So we came to realize that Nigeria does have sufficient technology to warn its people, but did not utilize the proper methods. Most people, like I said, they cannot afford these televisions. They make up to the average is about $200 a year for a family. And radio is becoming more and more outdated in recent years, so that wasn't a very effective method as well. So now I'll pass it on to Steph, who will discuss some of our recommendations based on our findings in the mitigation and preparedness stage of this disaster.
Are always more effective and simpler than reacting to disasters. As a result, given the possibility to heavily minimize the damage caused by such flood, we recommend the implementation of an awareness system to ensure that disaster information is shared rapidly with the Nigerian people in order to maximize time in which they can secure themselves as well as their property and belongings. This will consist of direct lines of communication between two major groups. First, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, and the Nigerian government, and second, the Nigerian government and its people. A clear number alert system shared between the NIMET and the Nigerian government will help to clarify the level of disaster threat. With a scale from 1 to 10, level 10 being the highest level of disaster threat, the government can better gauge the seriousness of NIMET warnings. This will help to minimize the national attitudes as observed with this disaster. A SMS alert system via mobile phone networks will be an effective means for the Nigerian government to communicate with its people. It's given the wide prevalence of mobile phone networks among Nigerians compared to other communication avenues, such as radios, televisions, or any other avenue that may require electricity, which is limited among its people. Next, we will move on to how we can improve the response system.
Next, we will be talking about the response stage. As mentioned earlier, the floods were predicted as early as March, and the government issued warnings through the radio and public statements. When the floods began in July, NEMA was the first to act, providing aid and assistance. The federal government also created new committees like the Interministerial Technical Committee to assist with response and recovery. Emergency funding of $110 million was also allocated by the government. Non-governmental organizations like the Nigerian Red Cross and the Doctors Without Borders were one of the first to respond by rescuing trapped people and setting up mobile clinics. Many other organizations have assisted by donating money to the relief effort. However, we believe that there were three main problems with the response. The first problem was that the government was not as prepared as it could have been and also lacked manpower. In some affected areas, the River Basin Development Authority, a government department that is supposed to assist in flood control, had only 3 employees in the field office. Earlier this month, the River State House of Assembly harshly criticized the National 2012 State Flood Management Committee, describing them as meaningless. Another major problem is the situation with the displaced people. Although many people were successfully evacuated, the displaced people were basically left to fend for themselves at the camp and are not sure whether or not they can move back to their homelands. Displaced farmers were also unsure whether to risk planting crops again for fear that they would get washed away. The final major problem was that when the floods came, many of the public infrastructure was severely damaged or rendered unusable. This prevented many civilians from exiting and prevented aid workers from entering.
To make the response more effective, we came up with 3 possible solutions that could aid in lowering response time and saving more lives. The first solution is to use SMS texting to instantly broadcast news and warnings to the people. Since the majority of the Nigerian population has mobile phones, this will allow people to get news and updates faster and more effectively. SMS can also be used by the flood victims to request immediate assistance. Using SMS to aid in the response of natural disasters has been successfully implemented in many countries already. The government can ask organizations like Frontline SMS or the government officials of Pakistan and Vietnam to get more information on how to implement SMS in their flood response strategy. The next solution is to use social media more effectively. Social media can be used to provide information to those in the disaster area, show the outside world what is going on, connect displaced family and friends, and provide additional resources. NEMA has a Facebook and a Twitter page, but are not using it to directly find and assist people. The government can look into applications to help citizens find their family and friends, like the application Google created to find people after the tragic Boston Massacre. The final solution is to use a global navigation satellite system and a geographic information system. These are like GPS and can be used to map out predictions for damages before the flood, map out the damages once the flood occurs, and find optimized routes when public infrastructure is damaged. This will aid the government to create a better evacuation plan before the flood occurs and map out the effects once the flood occurs to analyze the data. Also, by finding more optimized routes, it allows citizens to evacuate easier and allow aid workers to provide aid faster. By using these solutions, it will allow the government to create an effective flood action plan, communicate with its citizens faster and better, and find the best routes when public infrastructure is damaged.
After the flood, the Nigerian president approved a 9.7 billion naira budget for a recovery plan that consisted of releasing 40,000 metric tons of food to families affected by the flood and also seeds and fertilizers to farmers in order to increase food production. Budgeted money is placed in a relief fund, and money is taken out as needed and added in as funds and donations come in. The Nigerian government used money from this fund to build temporary residencies on higher grounds for the displaced families. However, many of the displaced victims were chased out of their temporary homes after a year of residing there with nowhere to go. This caused a major distrust against the government. The residencies are unwilling to relocate permanently to higher grounds, since they do not believe that the government is taking any drastic measures to help them. Our technology solution consists of 2 main components. The first solution is to tackle the issue of waterborne diseases, and the second one is to tackle both the issues of displacement of people and the lack of faith they have in their government. The first solution is to have a mobile phone reporting system to help prevent the spread of waterborne diseases. Based off of the reporting system that was set up by China's Center for Disease Control after the Sichuan earthquake, this reporting system uses a combination of SMS and real-time heat maps to track the activity of diseases. First, the largest and most stable mobile network will be used, and cell phones will be distributed to all the clinics and healthcare agencies with a focus on areas frequented by floods. Next, a system for reporting diseases will be created. A SMS text will contain information such as diagnosis, time, and location. These will all be input as numerical values. All of the compiled information from these messages are then displayed on a digital heat map in real time. The CDC in Nigeria can then analyze the map and make informed decisions such as where to disperse medical supplies. The second solution is to have the federal and state government make use of social media to inform the public of their plans for action. Social media would be a good option due to the high volume of Facebook users in Nigeria. The flood victims already have such a sense of distrust against the government. They do not believe that the government is doing their best to help them, and they are unaware of where the funds are going. If a display of how the flood relief funds are being allocated is constantly updated, then the displaced families will regain hope and trust in the government. Overall, we recommend a preparation, response, and recovery system that is closely integrated with direct and consistent technological communication avenues between parties of meteorological agencies, emergency agencies, Nigerian government, and its people. This will ensure that any information during disaster stage is rapidly shared and treated with serious consideration. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time.